In the grim years of the Great Depression, Cleveland, Ohio, was a city hanging by a thread, you know? Breadlines snaked around corners, and makeshift shanty towns known as Hoovervilles popped up on the outskirts, where folks struggled to get by. Crime loomed like a dark cloud over the lives of the working poor, casting a shadow of fear and desperation. But just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, Cleveland was hit by a horror that sent chills down everyone's spine in the mid-1930s. A killer emerged, striking without a clear pattern, showing no mercy, and leaving behind zero clues for the police to chase down. This monster would come to be known in the papers as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. Kingsbury Run was already a rough and tumble area, a winding patch of land on Cleveland's east side that had earned a reputation for its rail yards, flop houses, and ramshackle huts where the unemployed and desperate scraped by. It was a place haunted by poverty, where survival felt like a daily battle. But in 1935, it became infamous for something far darker, a sinister reputation that would grip the city with fear and leave its mark on history. It all kicked off in September of that year when a young boy stumbled across the first body, or rather, part of it. Can you imagine? The corpse was a man, but he had been decapitated, and his head was nowhere to be found. To make things even creepier, his skin had been treated with some sort of chemical preservative that turned it a sickly red hue. Investigators were completely baffled. There was no blood at the scene, which meant the man had been killed somewhere else and then dumped here. They named him the Tattooed Man, thanks to a piece of ink on his arm, but despite that clue, he was never identified. It's haunting to think about, right? Just weeks later, another mutilated body was found in Kingsbury Run, and then another. Each one bore the same chilling marks: decapitation, dismemberment, and those precision cuts that suggested the killer knew anatomy like a surgeon. Some victims were stripped of their flesh, their bodies scattered in pieces. The press couldn't get enough of the horror, and they quickly dubbed the killer the Torso Murderer, a name that would echo through the ages, chilling the bones of those who heard it. For the next 4 years, the butcher stalked Cleveland like a phantom. 13 bodies were officially linked to him, though some believe the real number was far higher. The victims came from the margins of society: the homeless, drifters, prostitutes, the working poor. Many were never identified, as if the killer deliberately chose people who could vanish without notice. He picked his prey from Kingsbury Run's most vulnerable, cut them down with surgical precision, and left their remains for the city to find. Cleveland police were overwhelmed, and the public was gripped by fear. Parents warned their children not to stray near the rail yards. Men refused to walk alone at night. In the papers, the killings were described as America's Jack the Ripper, a shadow haunting the streets. The case became so notorious that Eliot Ness, the famed prohibition agent celebrated for bringing down Al Capone, was called in to lead the hunt. By 1936, Ness was safety director of Cleveland, and the Torso murders became his nightmare. But even Ness, with his reputation for relentless justice, found himself up against an enemy who seemed untouchable. He threw every resource he had into the case. Suspects were interrogated, drifters rounded up, crime scenes examined with every tool available at the time. Still, the killer evaded capture. Ness believed the butcher had medical knowledge, perhaps a surgeon or a butcher by trade. Yet no doctor, no medical student, no slaughterhouse worker ever fit the evidence. The deeper Ness dug, the stranger the case became. In one haunting discovery, 2 severed heads were found wrapped in burlap, thrown carelessly into a bush. In another, a headless woman's body was dumped right on a busy street, as if the killer was mocking the authorities. Some bodies were so mutilated they could not even be identified as male or female. The murders carried a grotesque theatricality, as if the butcher wanted Cleveland to recoil, to feel powerless. By 1938, Ness was desperate. The killings were destroying his reputation and terrifying his city. In an act that would haunt him for the rest of his life, he ordered Kingsbury Run itself to be burned. Police raided the shanty towns, forced hundreds of homeless men and women out, and set the makeshift huts ablaze. The idea was to flush the killer from hiding. Instead, it displaced the most vulnerable, and the murders continued anyway. One suspect really caught everyone's attention, a local doctor with a seriously shady past. I mean, this guy had a ton of baggage. He was questioned extensively, and believe it or not, he even ended up in an asylum for a while. But here's the kicker, he was never formally charged with anything. Ness had this gut feeling that this dude was the killer, but without solid evidence, they just couldn't wrap things up. Then, out of nowhere, the killings just stopped. It was like someone flipped a switch and the whole town breathed a sigh of relief. But what about the doctor? Did he just vanish into thin air, or did he finally get his act together? It's like a plot twist straight out of a mystery novel. Some folks in town still whisper about him, wondering if he's lurking in the shadows or if he really turned over a new leaf. It's all a bit mysterious, don't you think? By 1939, the Torso murders ended, leaving Cleveland scarred and confused. Was the doctor truly the butcher, locked away where he could no longer kill? Or did the murderer simply move on, perhaps to another city, to prey on another desperate population? Some even whispered he had followed the rail lines west, leaving mutilated bodies in his wake wherever the tracks led. Eliot Ness's career never recovered. Though celebrated as the man who caught Capone, he was equally remembered as the man who failed to catch Cleveland's phantom butcher. The Torso murders remain unsolved to this day, the victims buried in unmarked graves, their names lost, their killer never unmasked. What really keeps this story alive, right? It's not just the sheer horror of the crimes, but the haunting emptiness they left behind. In Kingsbury Run, where trains rumble through the night, locals swear they can feel the chilling whispers of the butcher's victims in the wind. Imagine that. You can almost hear the echo of those desperate footsteps that never made it to justice. It's like a ghost story that refuses to fade. Somewhere in the shadows of America's past, the Mad Butcher of Cleveland still lurks, nameless, faceless, and undefeated, leaving a mark on history that we just can't shake off. Isn't that wild?